Hello, and welcome back to week 5 of our group discussions in the series The Way, where we're following Jesus through Mark. My name is Tarek, and I'm part of the team here at King's. And today we have Tex.
Oh,
Tex is part of the Catford site team. You're one of the pastors at the Catford
Mhm.
site and serving the site brilliantly there.
thank you.
Welcome. Good to have you in these discussions. And so, obviously, you preached at Catford this Sunday, speaking on the topic of mission, drawing it out from Mark chapter 6. And we looked at particularly verses 7 to 13 and then verses 30 to 44. And I thought you did a brilliant job, by the way. It was good to hear that message. And we've also had, obviously, some people will be listening from the other sites who had Tristan at Lee and Alex at Downham and Beckenham. So a few different messages, but generally the theme, I think, will be consistent across the church, which is that focus on what it means to be a missional church, to have a value of mission in the church. And obviously the scripture itself of the first part looks at Jesus kind of sending out the 12,
Yeah.
and then also the feeding of the 5,000 with the 5 loaves and 2 fish. There's a lot the whole book has been this.
Yeah.
Basically, there's so much to draw out from
Yeah.
the text. And obviously for the clever among you, you would realize we've missed Mark 5 on the Sunday. But if you've been following along in our devotionals, you will have heard a number of devotionals on that chapter. And if you haven't, I'd encourage you to listen to those and watch those and continue to read along as we go through the whole of Mark in that. But for today, I think what would be good to draw out, so obviously we've talked about the value of mission, and then in the group discussions, what we're doing is kind of looking at what it means to follow Jesus in different ways. And today I thought it'd be good to look at what it means to follow Jesus in boldness.
Yeah.
Particularly through that lens, kind of coming alongside mission and what it means to be bold, going out on mission and things like that. So I thought it'd be good to just start. If you had any thoughts from the passage or things from the sermon, obviously you preached on Sunday. So if there's anything that you had in mind that you would have liked to have talked about on your kind of on the Sunday, but obviously there's time
Yeah.
constraints. so-
Yeah. I think for me, there's, like I say, so much I could pick out in both those stories, and they're both really full. And I think, like I say in my message, is that they probably are. I think what they do is, and through the book of Mark, they capture like both elements of the kingdom, in that it is both spiritual but also practical. And I think for me, the particular bit that I feel like I've actually been living with for like probably the last 18 months or so is more rooted in Jesus sending out the 12. But because those instructions to the disciples are actually mirrored in Luke 10, Matthew 10, and actually like some scholars, they say that the reason the Great Commission is called the Great Commission is because Jesus's commission, he's given like 2 lesser commissions with more detail, because obviously the Great Commission doesn't have that much detail in it. But these passages do. And I think the thing I probably would have loved to have spoken a bit more about is this idea of seeing the ones in our places of like work or friendship groups, communities. Because I think, like, particularly Jesus, when he says, not everyone will listen to you, so move on. But in the other passage, he talks about people of peace. And just this idea that there is both, like the passages in Acts 2, where thousands come to faith at a time,
Yeah.
but then also the ones. So yeah, I think that's probably the thing, like like been living with most, is to consider, what does my life look missionally for just the one person in front of me, or the person that God has sent me, and that is equally as fruitful as, like when you might preach at New Day, or you on a Sunday where you do an appeal and a number of hands go up.
Yeah.
That God uses both and rather than one or the other.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it reminds me of Joe's message when he was talking about his mum's, I think, friend, I think it was, that invited them along to church, and like seeing Joe then preaching at New Day and
Yeah.
the impact of that, like you say, the one, and the fruit of the like many, I guess,
Yeah.
at New Day. Yeah, it reminded me of a similar story, and I was sharing it with my group last week as well. So my parents, we've basically always had lodgers in the house.
Mhm.
And around the time where there's a lot of people from Poland, I think, moving into the UK, there was a lot of negative stuff in the media and stuff about it.
Mm.
But from my experience, we had like a number of Polish people that were lodgers in the house, and a few friends kind of connected, and we got like relationally built. Like I was quite close with a couple of them, and one of them came along to church, and mum and dad invited them to the Alpha course. And it was really interesting because they were like really impacted by it. Like it had a massive impact on their faith. I think they had like a kind of religious Catholic background. But yeah, they kind of were staying with us and seeing like just our day to day, just the simple kind of the usual thing that we always say,
Mm.
invite someone to Alpha kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then basically they moved back to Poland, and they were so impacted by the course that they started running the course in their kind of local community in Poland, and they kind of shared it with a few people, and they started doing it somewhere else.
Mm.
And then, like after a while, after a few years, there were like multiple courses run in
Wow.
like different places, and they brought together like a conference basically of all
Yeah.
these people that were running the courses to like talk about it, and they got my mum and dad to come and visit
Wow.
and just see like the fruit and the impact of
That's
that kind of
incredible.
thing. And I think it really does speak to what you were just saying about the impact on the one.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I remember like mum was saying they asked her to share her testimony and stuff, and it was like getting to see like the impact
Wow.
of
Incredible.
seemingly, just like, oh,
Yeah.
come along to Alpha.
Yeah.
So yeah, no. Are there any stories of like your experience of what mission looks like? Obviously, we talked about the one, but you may have some
Mm.
other stories of
Yeah. I mean, what I love about your parents' story is that very few of us are going to be like Joe and preach to thousands of
yeah,
people. But what your parents exemplify is like the the bar of entry is actually quite normal.
mm,
And so I think that those stories of just people using what they have, like your parents, they had spare room, and
yeah,
they were generous with it for God's kingdom, and it's clearly done something. And I think lots of us are like that we probably have something, and God wants to use what we have for mission. Um, I mean, I think the kind of idea of the ones is actually quite common in the global south.
yeah,
And I think it's because probably more so for persecution.
mm,
Just like particularly the countries that I've been to and I've been involved with, that you have to, you can't get up and preach the gospel.
yeah, to ten
There's
thousand
some people,
people
yeah,
at a festival.
yeah,
Yeah, it doesn't
exactly,
quite work.
yeah. It's fear of losing your life, or even even just when if you're walking around in big groups. So I recently went on a trip to the Middle East,
Hmm,
um, and even then, just walking around, we couldn't do so in big groups.
interesting.
We took a group to kind of do some mission stuff. But again, even that lens of mission was like really slow, the one.
Mm,
And we were talking to some friends there who've been there a little while now. And what they are saying is the whole element of what they're doing is actually really slow,
mm,
that it is taking months and months to kind of sow because of just persecution
yeah,
or just people's life stages and worldviews. But I think what you end up seeing is that sometimes those stories, like what happens is you find this person of peace, or like, what Matthew and Luke call them. And a story that really stuck with me is a friend found a person of peace and they start reading the Bible together,
mm,
which for me, I think is such a powerful thing because I think it just allows scripture to work for itself
yeah,
and the power of God to work for
good.
itself. And what then happens is this friend, like, okay, I'm here to follow Jesus. They put their trust in Jesus. And then they say to our friends, like, oh, can you come and help me lead this Bible study with like a few of my family? And so our friend is like, oh yeah, sure. Like it must be like, 3 or 4 friends. And they literally go to this house, and there are 30, 40
Mm,
aunties, uncles, cousins. And again, like in the Middle East, obviously, like family is so broad.
yeah,
But again, just almost like with your parents, the one person opened a door behind many. And not all of those people, not all 30, 40 come to faith, but all 30 or 40 access the gospel in some shape or form. and it's for God to water. So yeah, like those are some of the stories that probably encouraged
Yeah,
me.
it's interesting. I mean, obviously, I do a lot of stuff with comms in the church, and so we're always thinking about like how do we like create content or booklets or like information. How do we plan the series and things like that to help communicate the word and the gospel, and how do we do that effectively? And we're always trying to balance even like what do we focus on, what do we spend our
Mm,
time on, how do we prioritize things? And I do always come back to like people are really moved by someone inviting someone round, spending time together,
yeah.
like saying, come along to this thing that I'm telling you about, and like putting your name behind it. And
Mm,
like, rather than there's kind of like a broad WhatsApp story or like
yeah.
Instagram reel or whatever, just kind of going, hey, like,
Mm,
I'm sure they have impact, but I do think there is a real calling on us to not just kind of broadcast generic things out,
mm,
but also to actually go, no, who can I specifically speak to about this?
yeah.
Share the experience that I've had
Mm,
on whatever their kind of story has been, and that being a very
mm,
powerful means to go on mission and to share the gospel
mm,
and to do that. So I think that's really good. So yeah, I think that's been quite interesting on a like a personal level,
mm,
on a smaller scale level. I do think one of the things, and obviously we've talked about the sending of the 12, but you've also got this story of the feeding of the
mm,
5,000, where you have like almost a small offering from the people, but then also there's like a faith element for the extraordinary.
mm,
And I thought it'd be good to just talk about and maybe hear some stories or your experiences of where you feel like you've kind of had faith or you've gone on mission and actually God's really done something incredible.
mm.
I was just wondering if you had any stories you'd like to share around that.
Yeah, I mean, the story that stands out, it's a little bit on the nose, but I was probably about 16, 17 years old back in South Africa. And my family and our group were actually doing like an outreach kind of thing. Um, and one of the things that my dad can do, my dad can cook for a lot of people, and so we did this project where like we had games and like worship and like bouncy castles, but there was also food. And we got told that there'd be about 200 people there,
Mm.
and so my dad was planning to cook for it, which we thought was fine. But then when I was helping serve food for my dad turned to me and we looked at the line and we were like, "There's way more than 200 people here," because just the community heard there was free
Yeah.
food. And so free food like generally draws anyone, doesn't it? From anywhere. And so my dad and I are like, "Heck, what do we do?" And my dad just said, "We've got to pray. Like, like we've got to feed everyone."
Yeah.
And we genuinely had this moment where just as my dad kept serving from this like giant pot,
Oh wow, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
like just food kept coming.
Like literally feeding the
Like,
500 or
yeah, 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 literally like just like every time he kept serving from this huge pot, like
wow,
it just didn't run out until every person was fed, including the team.
gosh.
And so for me, like that is a story that always
Yeah, yeah, that's
like
amazing.
stands out.
Yeah, yeah. Are there any other ones that come to mind?
Yeah, I think just hearing people being obedient to share the gospel
Hmm.
in very difficult places,
Yeah.
and but then seeing like God reveal Himself to people. And sometimes in the most bizarre way. So another group of friends in the Middle East, they were just walking around and they saw this lady, and they really felt God say like, just go and talk to her, go say hello,
Mm.
um, and then ask her what is she doing for dinner. And they were like, so weird, like God, why should we do this? Like it's just one person. Um, and basically they go up to this lady, they're obedient to God, and they say to her, they so how are you? What are you having
Mm.
for dinner? And then apparently like her facial expression, it all changes. They're like, what? Why? What? She was like, why did you ask me that? What am I having for dinner? And they were like, we just felt. I know it sounds a bit odd, but we felt God to say. And she basically said she's just been really low at the moment, and she said, God, if you're real and you see me and know me, would people come and talk to me and ask me? Like she went really specific, and God did.
Wow.
So like those moments of obedience,
Mm.
but again, like in some ways, it feels quite miraculous because
Yes.
you're taking very little. Like, okay, God, I think you're saying this, but it can feel transformational in someone's life.
And it ties in well with the kind of the boldness side, I think, because that's
Mm.
where it takes that step of going, oh man, what if they say no? Or what if it's really awkward? Or what if they
Mm.
just think I'm like a weirdo
Yeah,
for
yeah.
asking this random thing? But actually, when we're following Jesus, like in that obedience and being bold in it, I think, yeah, I've had a number of experiences as well. Like I remember when we were at New Day, we used to do like an outreach kind of
Mm.
thing, and
Yeah,
you'd
yeah.
go out into the streets, and sometimes you'd have like a prophetic word for people and stuff
Mm.
like that. And it did take a lot of boldness because
Yeah.
people might think I'm just crazy. But then
See.
you pray with people and you hear their like experiences
Mm.
and what's going on. And obviously sometimes we don't quite hear things right, and it's not always like the perfect story.
Yeah.
But I think just having that faith for just seeing what God will do with what we bring,
Yes.
I think that's really good. No, brilliant. Thank you.
Mm.
And yeah, hopefully that's encouraging to others who are listening and thinking about who you could invite to maybe things like Alpha or church or a group or whatever it is. And yeah, thank you, Tex, for sharing some of your
Good.
experiences. And
Thank you.
yeah, we'll see you guys next week.